true bipartisanship. So we have Democrats and Republicans here testifying today. So it's an honor to have you, Ms. Lutter. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
There we have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'm very pleased to be here. Delighted to co-sponsor this with Mr. Paulsen and Mr. Congressman Poe and I have worked on similar issues before, and certainly to be here with my colleague Karen Bass. This is a most important issue to all of us, and I thank you for holding this hearing and giving me the opportunity to come to speak. We've all said so many times, and we believe with all our hearts, that the children in this country are our most important resource. All of us who are parents and grandparents know the lengths that we would go to protect our children from harm. And we wish that every child had the opportunity to grow up in a family that loved and protected them. But unfortunately, that is not the case. As a result, as we are here today, 400,000 children are in the foster care system. And there have been great improvements in recent years in terms of reducing the numbers of children in foster care and increasing the number of children who find permanent and loving homes. We should acknowledge and be proud of the advancements that have been made, particularly the focus on supporting youth as they age out of the system. But the fact of the matter is that the majority of foster care parents are loving and supportive individuals who open their hearts and their homes. Foster care parents could rightfully be described as the better angels among us, and they deserve to be recognized for the incredible difference they make in the world every day. But far too many children in the foster care system don't have that benefit. But even for those incredible champions, protecting young people in foster care from the threats of the outside world is a very big challenge. And statistics tell us that foster children are exceptionally vulnerable to those who seek to exploit children, as Congressman Paulsen has told us. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children tells us 60% of runaways who are victims of sex trafficking were at one time in the custody of social services or in foster care. In my home state of New York, 85% of the trafficking victims have prior child welfare involvement. To say that I'm completely appalled and embarrassed by that number is an understatement. While state-specific numbers vary throughout the country, they all tell us that much more needs to be done. And I'm proud to be one of the co-sponsors of H.R. 2744, the Child Sex Trafficking Data and Response Act, sponsored by my colleague, Mr. Paulsen. And this bill, to go over it again, and I know you've heard it, but we can't hear it too much, because this is such an important bill and that must be addressed if we're going to reduce the incidence of sex trafficking in the United States, which is growing at terrible rates. First, it identifies and documents children within the welfare system who are victims of sex trafficking. Then it trains the Child Protective Service workers to identify and provide the services needed to victims of sex trafficking, coordinates efforts with state law enforcement, juvenile justice, and social services, and reports the number of children known or suspected to be the victims of trafficking each year. Now, all of these approaches are good and necessary, but the part of this bill that is of primary importance to me is that the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act will be amended to require that child victims of sex trafficking will now be considered victims of abuses and neglect, making them eligible to receive services within the child welfare system. The idea that a young person rescued from a sex trafficking operation could be considered an offender within the juvenile justice system is shocking to me and to you as well, I'm sure. These are victims in the strongest sense of the word, the children who have been preyed upon by those who would take advantage of the situation, that fear and the loneliness that comes from being in the foster care system to use them to their own advantage and profit. Those children deserve help and a chance at wholeness, not a criminal record. I've worked for many years on issues of domestic violence and sexual assault in the military. In 1994, I drafted the original Violence Against Women Act with my good friend, former Representative Patricia Schroeder. In recent years, fought to pass numerous protections into law that provide our servicemen and women with the resources, support, and the agency to seek justice in cases of sexual assault and to successfully prevent cases of sexual assault before they occur. In the process, I've watched women go from victims to survivors after receiving services that the agencies funded by the legislation on domestic violence have been able to offer. We watched the incidence of domestic violence fall by 67% since the bill was passed. And I believe we'll see the same kind of impact from addressing sex trafficking among our foster youth. The same millions of victims of domestic violence have been drawn out of the shadows and being given a chance to stand because of the Violence Against Women Act. And I believe that this legislation we're talking about today and other ideas being considered before this committee are the path forward for these young people who deserve all the assistance that we can provide. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Doggett, members of the committee, for your time and